My name is Jamie Delk. I am a lead zoologist at the Dallas Zoo.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so this week is interesting because we've got an old friend at a brand new to the podcast facility. I'm really excited to have Dallas Zoo on the podcast for the first time, but I'm going to be honest, we don't do a whole lot of talking about the Dallas Zoo on this episode. This episode is all about the journey of one zookeeper named Jamie Delk. Now, if you've been a fan of the pod for a long time, you know that Jamie was the guest on my season 1 finale episode back when she worked at Woodland Park Zoo. And that episode remains one of my most downloaded of all times, and people frequently comment that it was one of their all-time favorites because Jamie is as much a thinker and philosopher and just really a unique individual as she is a zookeeper. And in fact, Jamie went on a journey where she left the zoo field for a little bit before returning. And I thought that was an interesting story and one that was really worth sharing on the podcast. So that's what we talk about. And y'all, this is an episode that is filled with trigger warnings. Jamie talks about some stuff that she went through in her personal life, the loss of some pets, compassion fatigue, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. But it's an important story, and it is my hope, and it is Jamie's hope, that if anyone is listening to this and they go through anything similar, that this helps them feel seen and not alone and all of that good stuff. So it's a long chat, and I think it's a really good one. So we're going to get right to it. Real quick reminder, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari and on TikTok at Rossifari Pod. And with all of that said, let's head back to the world of Jamie Delk, now at the Dallas Zoo.
This is your second time appearing on the podcast, as you were our, I believe, season 1 finale, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So it's been a minute, and you were at Woodland Park Zoo back then. I
was in Woodland Park Zoo.
Yeah, and so life has taken you on a journey, and we are going to delve into said journey, which I'm pretty excited about.
I am too.
Yeah, but first, I have to tell my audience the most important thing, which is that you're here hanging out with me in Fort Worth after coming to see my show and bringing me bagels.
Live and in person.
It's so amazing. I'm so glad we get to hang out. So
I know.
We have stayed friends since, before the interview. We met before Rossifari was a podcast.
We sure did.
And
Carson brought us together.
Yes, Carson the Red Panda brought us together. And you introduced me to Yukiko and to Hazel. And I still think my favorite picture with the red panda, it was so dark that it's kind of almost a little blurry. But there's one with Hazel where she just looks like a stuffed panda. Yeah. She always does. But
she's a child of Lynn.
Yes.
Lynn was perfect. So
Lynn was perfect.
She made the most perfect babies. And Hazel was no exception. Hazel was a product of Lynn and Harold, who was also a very wonderful red panda that lived at Seattle and then went to Cincinnati.
Right.
Was born in Cincinnati, came to live in Seattle, and then went back to Cincinnati and created Hazel. So
it's good work. It's good work. Yeah. And Yukiko always had a very special place in my heart because I remember at the time when I met Yukiko, I was like, he feels different to other pandas that I've met. He feels, and this was By the way, you were the first person to ever take me back, like behind the scenes with a panda. I had purchased a couple of experiences before, but this was like the start of that becoming a thing for me, which was very special. But so I'd only met a couple of pandas, but I remember thinking like Yukiko felt very special and very like intelligent and soulful. And then I remember thinking, ugh, you're such an idiot. He's a red panda. And then when you were describing Yukiko to me, you were like, he's very intelligent. He's very soulful. I think you said something like he looks into your soul or something. I was like, Jamie, that's what I felt.
We called him the master.
Yes. And it's so special. I miss him so much.
He was a fantastic red panda, and he lived a very long life and very comfortable life until he did not. But he created, I think, something like 11 mini Yukikos, 4 of those with Hazel. And so we're very lucky to have his genes still running around the red panda gene pool. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, but yeah, so that was such a special thing. And then we've stayed friends for that entire time. But we have not seen each other until we went and got Indian food earlier this week. It was so good. It was amazing.
I was so excited when I realized that we were going to be in the same kind of almost area.
I know.
Yes.
No, when you texted me that, I was like, is this happening? Because we had planned, at some point I had planned to come and visit you and come and visit Inca, one of my past Jaguar cubs.
Yes.
And that didn't pan out. And so, and I can't even remember why. I think Daphne got sick.
Oh, that'll do it. Yeah. Your dog was also a journey.
Yeah. And so, I had to put any travel on hold while I dealt with her. And, but I still hopefully look forward to see Inca one day in person again. Because that was my child that I thought was going to eat all of Philadelphia.
And Inca is still doing quite well at Elmwood Park Zoo, and they've had all kinds of growth and cool stuff, and it's lovely there. So and Inca's also a mom now.
She is.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
She's a great mom. She has her own story. This is amazing. So, Elmwood Park Zoo has taken really good care of her. So, I get to see pictures of her all the time on Facebook and stuff.
So good. So good. And so let's delve a little bit into what you do right now.
Okay.
We'll start at the end and then go backwards in the story a little bit. Yeah. So you are now at Dallas.
I am.
And you are a lead keeper.
Yes.
And you are working with?
Primarily gorillas. I work on the primate team, and I've gotten to learn a new species that I've never worked with, nor have I ever worked at a zoo that had this species, but chimpanzees. So that's been a really cool experience. I've only been there for 6 months, a little over 6 months. So I'm still kind of learning my way, wading through the waters, learning a new zoo, learning a new team, learning new animals as always. I like to take my time.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And while that's not the focus of what we're talking about today, I am going to come visit tomorrow.
Yes.
I've been there, but you weren't there. And I'm really looking forward to spending some time with you at the zoo. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your experience has been like there so far.
It's been a very good experience. You know, they're a zoo that is very focused on a lot of conservation. So there's opportunities for all of their staff to go and work with different conservation stuff that they're involved in. I haven't delved quite into that, but they do all from local to worldwide stuff. It's been a little bit different than what I'm used to, working a little bit more independently, and they work really like a team. So 2-person lock checks, 2-person shifting. And so getting used to kind of being and communicating has been primarily my focus. Like the animal stuff I got, but this whole new like structure of how this place works has been like a challenge. I kind of have my ups and downs with it. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I got this. And then sometimes I'm just a total rebel. And I always tell the people I'm working with, I'm like, I'm struggling today because, you know, like I know how I would train this behavior by myself, but now I'm working with this big team and we're all working as a big team to train a behavior.
Right.
And so, yeah, I can kind of have these like hills of success and then crashing. But I was at Woodland Park Zoo for 15 years, over 15 years. So I had, you know, that's a long time to be, and you develop habits and stuff.
Yeah.
So this is a process of breaking habits, you know, and learning new habits.
That's very cool. And I like that you are open to the new thing, because I feel like a lot of people after 15 years are kind of just set in their ways a little bit, you know? So it's cool that you're working on that. Do you feel like, does it make sense to you from a safety perspective? Is that why it's more of the
yeah, it's definitely safety. And I think it's also like AZA best practices. So I think these are all things that have developed through the zoo, either in a process of like a mistake was made and how can we fix it? So the team sat down and they're like, we're going to put green dots on the doors to signify that there's no animal in there, and red dots on the doors to signify. So there's things like that have taken place, but also just the AZA recommending like not hand feeding code red animals. So now we're all switching to tongue feeding. And so these are all things that are really different and from how I was trained to be a keeper, but they're all for safety reasons.
Right. That makes sense.
And best practice reasons.
Yeah. Best practices are good.
So,
they're the best, apparently.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. And how have you found the environment at Dallas and the team and the people, and especially coming in a leadership role?
It's hard to come into a new place as a leader because people are training you, right? So you're like, you know, it's hard to tell when you're supposed to kind of step in or really what that position entails, because every zoo has job titles. Not all those job titles are the same throughout the zoo. So a lead keeper at Dallas is very different than what a lead keeper was at Woodland Park Zoo, for instance. So I'm still learning those things, but everybody has been really friendly and helping me learn my way. Like I said, it's more of a team environment. So you really have to learn how to figure out your place within that team, build trust with the people you're working with. So you're building trust with the animals and you're building trust with people, which you're going to do that anyway with any team. But it's a lot easier when people aren't staring at you all day. You know, when I was a, 5-day week Jaguar keeper at Woodland Park Zoo, I was doing things all by myself. And then we'd have meetings and you were building that. You were building the trust at that point with the people that you're working with. Here, you're being watched. You're with somebody all the time. You're not. They're not watching.
Right. No, I know what you mean. There's a person
way.
there, and yeah. No, I get that.
And when you're an introvert, hanging out with people all day can be overwhelming. You know. So, like I said, I have days that I have highs and days that I have lows, and but I'm learning. I'm wading my way through all of this. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about some training that we're doing with the gorillas, and sharpening that up and being part of that team has been a really cool experience.
Nice. What kind of training are you doing?
Right now, we're getting ready for exams. So we are actually working on separation training with the gorillas, which these gorillas, they are trained to do really amazing things. They're trained to do ultrasound, and I think the boys actually, they do ultrasound with them awake. They have a handful of behaviors that they know, these guys know, but they haven't worked a lot with separating them, especially like moms from babies. And so we have 2 juveniles, one's 5 and one's 6, and these are their first exams. Probably not going to go as well as, the first one's probably going to go well, but then after that, they're on to us, right? But coming up with a plan of how we move forward from this point and preparing for the next exams, that's where the fun, because you have 2 more years. So it's where the fun kind of steps in, and really being able to work with them, getting used to door shutting. I trained, like Woodland Park Zoo, all the gorillas that I worked with at the time I was there were trained to be separated. I worked briefly for a year at Gladys Porter Zoo and got to work on that behavior. And a lot of the ones, especially like submissive gorillas, once they figure out all the food is mine when I'm separated, they're sitting in that room waiting for you. They're like, shut that door.
That's awesome.
Shut it. And so I'm excited. I'm excited and to work with everybody that we've been working with, the whole team. Because they all have, like, they're these young keepers that have all these, like, really brilliant ideas. And I'm like this older keeper who has, bogged down for 20 years of seeing things fail. So it's really exciting to hear all the new keepers and their ideas and put that into action, supporting all that and seeing how it pans out.
Nice. So you mentioned Gladys Porter Zoo.
I did.
And that's going to bring us to kind of the what I was thinking the focus of this interview would be, which is you have been on a journey since Woodland Park. And I want to share as much of it as you are comfortable sharing with my listeners. Obviously, we've talked through a lot of this stuff over the last couple of years and texted about it and such. And so... yeah, talk to me. Just start to tell me, about this journey. So
in 2022, I made a really hard decision to leave Woodland Park Zoo. Woodland Park Zoo, I think, is the first zoo So San Antonio Zoo was the zoo I grew up going to. And, as a kid, I want to be a zookeeper at San Antonio Zoo. And it was the first zoo I was a zookeeper
Amazing.
Seattle was the first zoo that I looked at, and I thought, this place is amazing. I want to work here. And when I got hired, it felt like home. And so I thought I would be there forever, but life throws things at you.
Oh,
right?
yeah. All the curveballs.
And there was a multitude of reasons why I chose to come back to Texas. One was that my parents were here, and my parents are getting older, and I want to spend some time with them. My dad had a cancer diagnosis. He's totally fine right now, but it's a reminder that life's short.
Oh, yeah.
And our time with each other and our loved ones is limited. Secondly, I think in my last podcast, I kind of discussed all of my animals that I had. And you may have heard me mention Daphne, my dog.
Oh, Daphne the tripod.
So in the middle of COVID, she got diagnosed with osteosarcoma. And then in 2021, we found out that her internal pacemaker was no longer working. And so after discussing her condition with my team of vets that I had accumulated, we decided to go on forward with getting her a pacemaker. Unfortunately, that put me in a financial position where I was working 2 jobs. I could barely survive in Seattle. And her medicine, I think, cost me $800 a month.
Perfect.
So I really needed to, and I was in a spot where I needed to move out of the house I was living in. And I could not afford to do that and stay in Seattle. So my parents said, come home. So I came home.
That's some good parents right there.
That's some good parents. Packed up my car with all 5 of my animals, and my best friend came down and went to work one day at Woodland Park Zoo, came home, and drove that night to Texas, straight through. Just
good job not dying.
Straight through. It was iffy. It was really iffy, especially around the New Mexico-Texas border.
New Mexico is I love New Mexico when you're actually in the towns. But wow, driving through that state. Oh my goodness.
It was completely dark. And we were on this road that I had no idea where it was going. I had this idea in my head that I was going to drive through Roswell. I had bought alien glasses for Daphne and some antenna. And we were going to stop in front of the sign to Roswell. But my best friend got, my best friend in the world, she's been my best friend since high school. She got a migraine. And so at that point, it just became getting to Texas as fast as we could. But... and a twist of fate, it was the first time I got to see Mercury.
Nice.
The planet. So Mercury, you can only see it when the sun's rising or sun's setting. And the sun was rising, and I saw Mercury right there. So small miracles.
And didn't die.
And I didn't die.
Yeah.
No, unless I'm a ghost right now.
Yeah, nothing would shock me at this point. But
so I initially started working at Moody Gardens, which is a fantastic place on Galveston Island.
Yes, such a cool place.
But I had been in communication with an old curator that I worked at Woodland Park Zoo. And he worked at Gladys Porter, and they had a job opening for a lead in their gorilla and carnivore department. Now, Moody Gardens is like a rainforest, so they have some really cool animals there, but they didn't have gorillas.
Right.
And that was kind of my jam. So when he offered me that job, I decided to take it, even though I had just barely been at Moody Gardens for like 3 months. And moved my little tush down to the Mexico border.
Amazing.
So shortly after I got there, I actually was, through just life happening in other people's lives, I was promoted to the associate curator of gorillas and carnivores. So I got to dip my toe in management.
Nice.
And it was a great place to dip your toe in management because I think it was a team of like 5 people that I was managing. And just the upper management was really supportive of any changes that I wanted to make. Awesome. They were amazing. But it was too far from my family. It was 6 hours from my family. And so I could have flown from Seattle to see my family in a shorter time than it took me to drive. And I was starting to feel a very heavy weight. I lost Daphne. Shortly after I lost Daphne, my cat that was not supposed to die died on the car ride home from euthanizing Daphne. So we're talking a day later.
That's still the most insane thing you've ever told me.
Still cannot accept that that's what happened to Nika. My Quaker parrot had died shortly after I moved to Galveston. He was 30 years old. That's about all you can ask out of a Quaker parrot.
Right.
He had congestive heart failure. I was expecting to lose him. And then a little further into the year of 2023, I think, yes, I lost Jack, my cat, which he was in kidney failure. He was 18 years old. So I knew I was going to lose him.
You like old and broken animals.
I love.
And then are weirdly surprised when they, die.
Well, I like my cats to come from zoos. So Jack was from San Antonio. Nika was from Woodland Park. And in early October, a little black cat from Gladys Porter came into my life too.
Nice.
Originally her name was The Void, but she does not respond to that. She would only respond to Scary Vampire Kitten. So
of course,
that's what she chose. So
of course.
This is what we call it. But her official name is Marceline the Vampire Queen, daughter of the Void. So, but we call her Scary Vampire Kitten. And she likes to show you her little sharp teeth. She's a black cat. She's tiny. She's only 5 pounds.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And she thought Jack is a black cat too. So she thought Jack was her mom and and he hated her.
Amazing.
But he just tolerated her till he was dead.
Did I ever tell you, by the way, that the one cat that I've had in my adult life was a zoo cat?
Was it?
Yeah.
Zoo cats are the best.
When Zoe was interning at Philly, or volunteering, whatever her position was, someone dropped a cat off.
Oh, yeah.
And we brought it home. And I was like, oh, great. It's a zoo cat. Zook. So we named it Zook. And that is when Zoe found out that she has an allergy to cats that allows her to work with them as a vet, but that we could not have in the house. So we rehomed to a family that we know. We still get updates. We love Zook. Yeah. We love Zook. But Zook, I'm not a huge cat person. Like I like them, but not to the extent of dogs. Zook was basically a puppy and was like my cat. I loved Zook so much. And yeah, but it all worked out and Zook's in a great house now. And Zook for Zoo cat. It works.
Yeah. Zoo cats are the best. If you ever have the opportunity to own a zoo cat, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Big weight though. And, being a zookeeper for 17 plus years, it's a heavy weight to bear. This is a job we're very passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
We love these animals. We put our heart and soul. A lot of times we are not getting paid enough, or, you know.
What you deserve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, who is getting paid enough? Who's getting paid what they deserve? But
yeah,
it's
like 1% of the
pickings.
nation. But
like,
yes, yeah.
It's real slim pickings. You're doing this because you want to do best for the animals. Then you're talking about the balance of just animal welfare, and visitor experience. And those two things hardly ever match. Sometimes they do.
Right.
But in a perfect world, they match. But in reality, you're constantly fighting for your animals and making sure that they have the best animal welfare, but that people are getting the experience that they are paying for. So I actually decided to take some time off from zookeeping. And in fact, I even contemplated leaving the zoo field permanently.
I was going to say, my memory of our chats during this time, and we all know how specious my memory can be, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but like the way that I remember you presenting it to me was that you were leaving the zoo field. Now you were open to returning.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it was a very specific, like, I am not a zookeeper anymore, and I'm going to process that. Am I remembering correctly?
I think that I announced it as the death of zookeeper Jamie. R.I.P.
You are so dramatic, and I love it so much. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I was burnt out.
I mean, and let's be honest, burnout is real in this field. Compassion fatigue is real in this field.
Yes.
Also, while you only, we're not going into the personal details, but you went through some crap even before the animals died. You touched on it a little bit, but you didn't leave Seattle just because you were sick of rain. Yeah. And then on top of that, you had a bunch of animals that were the loves of your life die. Yes. Like, that's compassion fatigue in the real world outside of a job that is full of it.
Well, and like the taking care of Daphne was a full-time job. I was her feet. She had arthritis in her back hips and no front leg. And then her cancer treatments made her have sundowners. So she was up all night and she needed to go outside. She wanted to sleep in my room. Then she didn't want it. I mean, this was my mom took care of her for 1 week and she said, I don't know how you're not crazy. Like, you never actually fall asleep. You are just constantly listening for her and if she needs you. And so I had been doing that for 2 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Daphne was a lot. I love
my Daphne.
I know.
I love
and I would have it's funny because, like, as your friend, I'm like, well, that was probably silly, but I would have done the same exact thing for Lexi and would do it for Buzz, and like, no, I get it.
Well, and I remind myself that when Daphne got sick, it was in the midst of COVID. So the rules had changed. We were no longer allowed to go in with our animals to the vets. And so the idea of not being next to my dog when she was euthanized was out of the question. So I was going to do everything to keep her alive. Unless it just really wasn't the right thing for her.
Right.
Like, I wasn't going to torture her by any means. And she was so funny in her illness. And the end days were, McDonald's and pork rinds. And so and cinnamon rolls. So I got to spoil her. But I was tired. I was just tired. And I'm honestly it's still very hard. Animal care is still very hard for me at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so you left. So what did you do?
I moved back in with my parents.
I mean, that's awesome. To have that ability and to not have gone completely insane doing it is impressive.
Well, luckily they had like a little garage apartment. So I had a little independence, but my mom, was so thrilled to have me. So she was there a lot. And I found a really cool, they live kind of in the hill country of Texas. Not Austin. I grew up, I was born in Austin. I grew up in Austin, but they live out in the country. And then they have like a lake house. And so I was living in the hill country on this lake house. So it's a very peaceful setting with my little scary vampire kitten. And I got a part-time job doing cave tours.
Unbelievable. It's so you. It's so very you. Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So at Longhorn Cavern State Park specifically, which is an amazing cave that has tons of history. And it's a fun job. It's a fun job.
I believe it. Yeah. Caves are cool.
Yeah, they are cool. And I still got to talk about animal conservation because there's a little bat in there called the tricolor bat. And so you show people these tricolor bats and you do like a little keeper chat about them. So,
Amazing.
I mean, you're doing chats through the whole thing. You're talking about geology, you're talking about the history, you're talking about darkness, the effects of darkness on people. And yeah, then there's this little bat hanging around, and that always took up the biggest part of my talk.
That's awesome. Pop quiz. Difference. What's a stalactite and what's a stalagmite?
Well, stalactite holds tight to the ceiling, and stalagmite you might trip over.
I love it. I had the feeling that you would know, weirdly. Also, you could have totally been wrong and I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
They're not animals, so I don't know. No. So, no, that's awesome. That's fun. So part-time cave tour giver.
Yeah. And then, so they have like a upper cave tour, which is very you can walk through that whole thing. It's about an hour and a half. And we talk a lot about the CCC and President Roosevelt's New Deal projects and stuff like that. And then we have the wild cave tour, which is you go deep into the cave and climb through the tunnels that the CCC workers use to access the cave to clear it out. And you shimmy your way through different, openings and climb through holes and go down slides. And it's totally fun. And I got trained to do that as well.
Good job not dying.
And I did not die. And we talk more about like cave safety, like if you're a spelunker, if you hike, what rules you should follow.
Right.
Keeping safe and doing things like that, because there's a lot of caves in Texas, and you can actually die in a cave if you crawl into a hole and there's no oxygen in there.
Yeah,
so,
I believe it. Yeah,
can suffocate you.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
fascinating. So, when you were going through this time period and your cave period, what were your feelings as far as specifically the death of Keeper Jamie? Was that a struggle? Did it feel good at the time? Like at first,
So I had built up a lot of anxiety. And so, I felt relieved.
Okay.
I didn't have to think about locks.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to think about killing somebody if I made a mistake. I did not have to think about if an animal was sick. I didn't have to think about any of that, but I still had all this residual anxiety. And so I worked part-time in a cave. I spent the other part-time.
That's just such a funny way to phrase it. Yeah.
Part-time in a cave. I spent the other part of my time out on a ranch in Lakey, Texas, which is the real hill country. It's beautiful. And I was very fortunate to have a boyfriend that worked out there on a ranch. And so I could go out there, help him clear trails. Nature is one of the only places I don't feel lost. On a hiking trail. And so it was a really peaceful area. There's a little barn cat that I became very attached to named Clementine.
Aww.
I named her Clementine. And I got her cat beds. But it took a really long time. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night in panic attacks. And I actually had an opportunity to apply for a manager position at another zoo. And I went through that whole process. I didn't end up getting that job. I came in second. But I just had so much anxiety. It wasn't the right time for me. It would have been a horrible, horrible mistake. Not that zoo particularly, but I just wasn't ready. I was not ready. Yeah. And it was a huge responsibility.
I mean, you went through trauma.
Yeah.
And again, the zookeeping life is not an easy one. So when you're getting hit with all this crazy trauma in your personal life as well and all of that, yeah, it makes sense. So you go crawl around some caves.
Do you want to talk about the personal stuff I went through?
Completely up to you, of course.
I mean, it's difficult to talk about because I was in a relationship for 15 years, but it had become a scary situation. And hence why I left at 10 o'clock at night from Seattle to drive all the way to Seattle to Austin. Not to Austin.
Nope. Try again.
To Texas.
There we go.
Just anywhere in Texas. Yeah. It's a big state.
It's a big state. Just find a place.
Yeah. I had to leave.
Yeah. Had to leave.
I had to leave. It wasn't a choice.
I was so proud of you when you left. I mean, everyone was so proud of you when you left. Yeah.
I extended all the options. I tried contacting shelters. Mm-hmm. There is no place for people like that were in my situation that have 5 animals to go to.
Right.
There was I think now Seattle shelter will temporarily take animals while you go through something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, every woman's shelter that I tried to contact, you couldn't take your animals, and I couldn't leave Daphne.
No, of course.
And I couldn't leave Jack. I mean, I couldn't find homes for all this. So it was really, it wasn't a decision. It was something I had to do. So I don't know if that will help anybody else that might be out there in this similar situation. Just do what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And I mean, sharing your story is, if one person listening is in a bad situation, hears that, Yeah. Yeah. And going through that, of course, everything else was harder. Yeah. Of course, you needed a reset. Mm-hmm. Of course. I've been through some stuff, but I can't imagine, what you were going through. And I remember you and I would have conversations. And I would be like, do I need to fly out to Seattle? And we had not seen each other. It's not like we were like best buds hanging out or anything. But just when we'd be catching up, he'd be telling me stuff. And I would just be like, do I need to come out there? Do I need, what is going on? I think there was an entire army of people that would have shown up at your house.
100%.
But I know it's scary, and the animals, and where do you go? And
Well, and here's the thing is, the world is such an expensive place to live in now that if you're with somebody that you love and you're with them for a long time and you break up, you may not have any other choice but to continue living together.
I know a lot of people that have done that,
And sometimes that can also be the problem. So I fed the problem by continuing to be there. My greatest hope in the world is that the person that I loved now has a happy, healthy life. But with me staying there in that periphery, he just never was. He was just angry.
Right.
Angry. And so it was just escalating and escalating and escalating. So it can seem hard if you're in that situation. It can seem like a great idea. We didn't make great partners, but we are still friends. You still love that person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that works out. Sometimes it does not.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, I feel like with big decisions like that, going back to my own, choosing to get a divorce and stuff, until the moment you do it, it feels impossible.
Yeah.
And then you do it. And even though it can be hard, and even though there can be thoughts of all different kinds, actually doing it is it's so freeing, and it's such a unique thing, because you were saying, this weight that is on you, just heavy, is suddenly gone. And even if it drops 50 other weights on you and all these other concerns, having the weight that was just there forever, that you just got used to, gone, is fascinating. And by the way, to be super clear, my ex and I did not have the kinds of problems that y'all had. We were just not a great couple. Right. But there was none of what you're talking. I'm not trying to compare the two apples to apples, but I remember literally for a while being I need to leave. And then actually saying the words, I want a divorce, and being oh, wait, I'm I feel, even though that was the scariest thing I'd ever done, I also felt like this weight was gone. Even though, like I said, a million other weights were landing on me at that time. You know, I won't talk to my parents about this and tell my friends that I'm going to lose friends and whatever. But just feeling that one weight leave was like the most astonishing feeling. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Well, for me, there's been a giant, and part of being in, Brownsville, I was grieving this place that I loved. Like, I went to Mount Rainier every weekend and hiked. I loved Seattle. I loved that city. It was my home. I loved that zoo. I had made friends, and all of a sudden, as I drove out of Seattle, I felt this huge relief. And then as I sat alone in my house in Brownsville, so on YouTube, there's videos that you can watch of just people walking in the rain in downtown Seattle. And I would just watch those because I had become so accustomed to the sound of the buses and the sound of the rain. It's the only thing that brought me peace. And I thought about going back, but it's not a safe place for me to be.
Right.
Like, there had to be that reality check of, I can go back, but I needed to give myself the freedom that I could go back, because I had told myself, no, you can't.
Right.
And that was making me want it even more. So I still love Seattle, but...
Well, and I remember Woodland Park had an opening that you were like, I'm not zookeeping, but... And I was like, I am curious to see where this goes.
Yeah. Every time they have an opening, there's a little piece of me that wants to apply. Applied for one. I interviewed for it. And then, because my bosses know me, they said, how serious are you about this? And I backed out, because at that time I wrote a list, and this is actually when I decided to leave the field. I wrote a list of staying in Brownsville. I wrote a list of it was a collection manager position, or an ACR, animal care manager position, they call it now, at Woodland Park Zoo. And then it was acupuncture school.
When you're not in a cave, obviously.
And so
what if you had done acupuncture in a cave? Come on, this could be a new thing. This is brilliant. Sorry, I need to lighten the mood for a minute here. This has gotten heavy and I love it, but I had to make at least a dumb joke, Yes.
But so I did.
So acupuncture school, and that's what won.
It's what won.
Yeah.
So I ended up moving back with my parents. I worked in a cave and I applied to acupuncture school, and I got into acupuncture school.
I don't see any needles laying around.
I know, right?
Confused, yeah.
So I was just waiting to go to acupuncture school and doing these things. And a couple of things happened. I decided that I needed to get a job. If I was going to acupuncture school, this acupuncture school that I was going to go to was in Austin. And I decided I needed to have like a part-time job. And what a better place to get a part-time job but an acupuncture clinic. The acupuncture clinic that I decided to apply for, like a receptionist, just to see how things work and see how business works, was one of the top acupuncture clinics in the Austin area. If not, I think they would say in the United States. People flew from different areas. Their interview process was very intense, which was really, really cool. Nice. They made me take a personality test. They made me... before I could even interview for it. Wow. I had to do all these. I had to do a video of myself telling them why I wanted to work there.
Were you auditioning for Survivor or an acupuncture job? Yeah, that's hilarious.
But I made it to getting an interview with the guy that runs this clinic.
Nice.
And he actually was part of the school I was going to go to. And I had met him on the open house. So I was like, oh, I know you. And he started talking about how he felt acupuncture was his calling from God. And he's, not that everybody believes in God, and that's fine, but that was his calling in life. And when I hung up from that interview, I was like, animals have always been my calling since I was a child. I knew I was going to work with animals. And at that point, I decided to be a zookeeper again. And not that I wasn't still interested in going to acupuncture school. I was still looking at, could I work with animals? Vets are the only people that can technically do acupuncture in the state of Texas on animals, but they do have like a little loophole. You can practice acupuncture on animals under a vet. So you can do the needles under a vet. So I had some exploring to do on that. I was supposed to go on a little trip to Nepal.
I know.
And
introduced you to the other keepers that were going.
Yes. And through a failure on our government's part,
Never happens. The one time the U.S. government had a failure. Yes, go ahead.
My passport got sent to the wrong post office, and it came a day late.
Unbelievable.
Now, granted, that was my fault because I did not realize that you could not go into a country if your passport was going to expire within 6 months of that trip. But I still got it in 3 months before my trip. So I thought that was plenty of time. When it didn't end up being enough time, I called and I got it put on the fast track. It got lost on somebody's desk. They overnighted it to me so that I would show up on the day of my trip, and it got sent to Wimberley, Texas instead of Lano, Texas.
Amazing.
By the time I tracked it down to Wimberley, Texas, they had already sent it back to Austin. So it was a trip I was not supposed to go to. But that is when Dallas posted their position as well. So,
I didn't even know that. I didn't realize that's cool.
I would have never applied for that position because I would have been in Nepal when it was posted. So things work out. I'm still going to Nepal.
You are? I'm excited.
Or not this week.
Not this week, no.
This year.
Yes, this year. Yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
So,
So you felt like this was your calling.
Yeah. I was pumped. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go back and coach.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really cool. And it really says to me, because of my deep psychological background. No, wait, I'm a drummer. But what it says to me is that, you're on the other side of your trauma now. And that doesn't mean that you're done with it by any means. I would never downplay that. But you are on the other side of that now, and you're able to be back where you belong. Because I got to tell you, I know a lot of people that have left this field.
Yeah.
Very few of them I was not disappointed in you, but I was disappointed for the field. And I was,
that's very sweet.
It's very true. I mean, you are really amazing with these animals, and
it's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you're back, and I'm so glad that I get to see you do the thing again tomorrow. Almost today. Goodness.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah. We are doing this interview. I forget if I said this at the beginning, but we're doing this interview literally the night after you came to a show.
Yeah.
And then a group of us hung out together for a while, and then we were like, cool, let's go do an interview. Yeah. Brilliant. But yeah, no, I think it's very important that you're back. I think that's a very good thing. I think it's an amazing thing that you left and took care of your mental health. But I think it's something that I hope that people who listen to this, and especially people in the field who have left or who feel like they should leave, will remember that, and will take from this that, there is that hope. And just because you leave doesn't mean you're gone.
No.
Because you were dead and buried.
I was dead and buried in the ground.
Yep. And then you were like, I need an axe. Pitchfork.
I mean, just like any good soap opera.
You know? Are you a clone?
Maybe.
The original Jamie died in a cave.
I told you. I'm a ghost.
I know, right? So what have you found that you can do outside of the zoo to bring some peace and some calm and some...
Yeah, because I'll just say, even though I came back and I was ready to go and coach, I still struggle.
I mean, you said that at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a new thing. Yeah.
It's a new thing. It's hard.
You're doing anxious feet right now.
Yeah. I wring my hands now. And I will say that, every single day I show up for work, I do the absolute best that I can. But I'm in a different spot than I was in Seattle at Woodland Park Zoo. I was a different keeper. And I mean, I'm still the same keeper, but I didn't lose sleep at night. I didn't wake up at 4 a.m. dreading work. And I mean, just to be plainly frank about it, sometimes I wake up and I just dread work. I just have feelings that I just don't want to do this anymore. And then I get to work and I hear the grumbles of the gorillas, and I see the people and I feel connected again. I miss my zoo family, but I feel much like a foreigner sometimes. Also super glad that I moved back to Texas, weirdly, because when I grew up here, I never appreciated the beauty of Texas. And with these new eyes, I am realizing what a wonderful and beautiful state Texas can be. So you asked me, one of the things that I find peace and hiking is nature is where I find peace. So I spend almost every single one of my weekends driving hours and hours to go hiking. I'm hitting 10 miles every hike.
Nice.
Right now, I'm training for Nepal. So
yes,
I am forcing myself to do some inclines. And
yes, I don't know if you heard my episode with Kelly and such from last year, but yeah, sounds like it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So I've been working at it. And like I said, I grew up here, so there's this weird feral, like my ancestors were here kind of thing. My family on my mom's side has been in Texas for a very long time. And yeah, there's just this connection to the land, especially out in the Kerrville area where I'm spending a lot of time. So the other thing is baking bread.
In particular,
bagels.
Yes. So everyone who listens to this podcast knows that soft pretzels are my favorite food. But not even number 2, but 1B is bagels. I love a bagel.
Yeah.
I love a bagel. And so you made me bagels.
I sure did.
And after my show, I had not had dinner. So I had one of the bagels.
Yeah.
It was so stinking good.
Yeah.
And I am not just saying that. I promised you I wouldn't do that.
You promised me you would not lie.
I freaking loved it. I was tempted to eat another one right now, even though I'm not hungry anymore. And I saw that, one of the ones that you made me is a jalapeno bagel.
And cheddar bagel.
Yeah. And that is my absolute favorite. And I'm saving it for tomorrow morning. I told you about my breakfast ritual. I have a whole breakfast ritual. We won't even get into it right now. But you want to talk about feral. That's, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a thing.
With a runny egg.
Yep. Oh my gosh. I look like my facial hair. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it is. There will never be photos of this or video. I'm just saying. But I am so excited to have it on that bagel tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. Like, you found a thing that you're really good at and passionate about that isn't the animal thing.
Yeah.
And, that's really cool.
I learned how to cook. So I during that time off, I learned how to cook and I learned how to bake. And a bagel was like, I love bagels as well. Never thought I would be able to make bagels. Watched people on TV and was like, ooh, that's no way. No. And yeah, the first bagel I made, I was so proud of it. It was just, they weren't as perfect as the second bagels that I made. My second bagels were perfect.
Nice.
So yeah, nothing like kneading dough to, just get your mind off of everything else in this world.
I believe it.
And
I can't bake. I'm a great cook.
Yeah.
I'm a great intuitive cook. I can go all day. But I can't. I'm not a baker. Never have been.
It started with impossible to find Indian food in Brownsville, Texas. So I decided I'm going to make some chicken tikka masala and I'm going to make some naan bread. And so that's where the baking started.
That'll do. Which is another passion that we share, Indian food.
Yes.
The other day you came, thank you so much. You came, picked me up, drove me like a half hour because there's no good Indian food like right in Fort Worth. And I thought maybe we were just missing something since, you're in Dallas. And I had looked and I even like tried Grubhub and stuff. There's like nothing. So I talked to people at like Ampersand, the cool coffee shop that I go to every day and stuff. And I talked to people at the theater and everyone was like, oh, honey, no. And I was like, okay. But you found an amazing place. It was like a half hour away.
Yeah.
And it worked. Yeah.
Had really good reviews. So we went there. We checked it out. It was fantastic.
And I got to introduce you to Momo, which are a Nepalese thing that you will get to experience in Nepal, assuming that you don't lose your passport and have a problem again. Sorry.
No, I'm just thinking, do I know where my passport is?
You got time.
I do.
Yeah.
Do I know? Okay. No. Yeah, good. I know where it is.
You should probably book your flight, just saying.
I just want Terrence to write me back and tell me who else is going on this trip because I don't want to fly alone.
That's fair. Yeah. Red Panda Network weirdly has more important things to do than send you a roster, apparently.
Well, understandably. Yeah. There's a whole species to be saved.
Yeah, there is. Although now they get help from a whole other program called Save Red Panda.
That's your story.
So excited.
And I'm going to let you tell it.
Oh, and I have, and I will continue to. But so I like this. I like that this story was you finding your way back and like it being organic. But I also want to point out to people who may be listening that that's not everyone's story. There are plenty of people who leave this industry and for them, it stays left. And whether that is because it was not the right fit for them or because they found that it's fun to have money or whatever it may be, that is perfectly acceptable and very cool. And in no way are either Jamie or I saying that like you should return or, if you're listening to this, there's one person in particular that I'm thinking of who like, they're gone and they're probably gone forever. And that's good for them and cool. I support and love that person. That's great. Awesome. But I do love that you came back to. I do love that this was your thing. I think that, I am a firm believer, and I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, but I am a firm believer that we all have a thing or things that we're just kind of made for. And I am not a religious person. I don't mean that from a God perspective, but just like that we're hardwired for that, whatever. Drumming is one of mine. And I love it. I love it as much today as I did when I started, as when I played my first professional gig, as when I booked my first tour. I love it. You can tell when I'm up there. You saw me play tonight. I am in my element.
Absolutely, 100%.
And
it's magical.
Thank you. And
I think that's what I said.
It is. Yeah,
y'all. It's like, thank you for letting me see your magic.
Yeah, and it is. That's how it feels to me sometimes, And I think you can have more than one thing. I think I've found this other new passion with this animal stuff, and I'm still kind of figuring my way through this, but it's amazing.
I mean, too, like when you look at the world and the way the stream of life is taking you and all these doors start opening, that's how that's confirmation.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And you've had so many amazing things to just prove that what you're doing is right. Even because you bust your butt.
I do.
Every single minute of every single day doing two things that you're very passionate about, but are like here and here. And sometimes you just need that confirmation of it's what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. And there's confirmation on both sides, I feel like, for you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, it's been amazing. But I do feel that not everyone who gets into zookeeping has that passion. Even if they think they did, it might not be the right thing. And that's okay. And I also think that it's okay to have found your other passion or another passion and go off on that, whatever it is. So I just want to be super clear that for anyone listening, Jamie's story of coming back to the industry is cool. It's really cool. And it was something I really wanted to share on here. But just because it is the right thing for you for right now doesn't mean that anyone else should feel any kind of way hearing this. And also doesn't mean that 5 years from now, you're not going to be, the person who's working at Jamie's Bagels and remembering fondly your second time as a zookeeper that ended, and that's okay too. Yeah.
I think anymore in life, what I strive to do as I get older. So like when zookeeping can kind of be a young person's game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and not to say that old people can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, older people you can be a zookeeper until you retire.
I know many who are, yeah.
Tons of people, every person at Woodland Park Zoo that was their career.
Mm-hmm.
But as I get older, I see zookeeping differently than when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
And the weight of zookeeping and the perils of our world are heavier on me. And zookeeping is a reminder of all that. We are constantly talking to people about saving animals.
Mm-hmm.
Every single animal, every single land, all land in this world is now managed by people. So that's an awful thought.
Mm-hmm.
That there's no wild left.
Yeah. I talk to people about that all the time. Just like, you know, people who come across me drumming with an elephant or something and are like, oh, they should be in the wild. And one of my favorite things to say is like, what do you think the wild is right now? Where is this pristine wild that you think exists?
I know.
But no, it is heavy. It's heavy for me. I break up my Zoo News stuff so that I don't have to do it all the same. I used to just like write it out and do it all at once.
Yeah.
And man, sometimes you're talking, 8 animal deaths in zoos and conservation news that's really bad and poachers and, flooding at a zoo. And even if the animals were fine, there's all kinds of problems. And I would go through this. And there were times I'd get 10, 15 minutes into zoo news and be like, I'm in a bad mental place right now. And that's just reporting on this crap. That's not actually even being there. So I have taken many steps to make that less of an impact on me.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's really cool. Like at the Dallas Zoo, they make sure that everybody that works there can be part of those conservation programs because it's heavy on everybody. It's heavy on the people that have to talk about it. It's heavy on the people that are you're there, you're looking at these animals and you're thinking about them in the wild and the plight that we're all facing, which is the 7th mass extinction of the world that's totally man-made.
Go team.
So yeah, as I get old, I just think what I really want to do is I want to do good. And I want to heal. I want to do things that are good for the earth. Because it's not just about the gorillas and it's not just about the chimpanzees and it's not just about the bees, and it
might just be about the red pandas.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I read a lot of books on, I have decided bees, like I'm reading about bees and I would like to have some bees and be a beekeeper because I think bees are really good for the earth and they're good. And fungus is really good for the earth. So I want to learn how to grow mushrooms.
I think it's mostly just by not doing your laundry.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're all trying to do. And well, I hope that's what we're all trying to do. We all have different ways of doing it. Yeah. I challenge anybody that goes to the zoo to look around at that zoo and instead of complaining that you didn't see every animal, maybe complain that you did see every animal because, these animals are supposed to be hard to see. They're supposed to be elusive. They're supposed to be living in natural habitats that we are so honored and privileged to get to see them. And, they should be it should be a challenge. They are here for us, that we are here for them. But they're not here for our entertainment.
Right.
And I think zoos have done a great job of getting away from that. And AZA facilities especially.
Of course,
but I mean, there's good zoos and bad zoos. We talk about that sometimes. But yeah, I think that I always think I'm getting to view this animal that I would never have been able to see if it wasn't for this moment. And it's awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
And I hope it inspires people to go out and do good.
I think one of the things that I always say that is so, I don't know, sometimes I say it, I'm like, oof, that sounded like a lot, but it's true, is that when people talk about, do zoos inspire people? Can they inspire conservation? There are all kinds of studies that say all kinds of things, funded by all kinds of people with all kinds of agendas on both sides, on, whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm it. Mm-hmm. I'm the guy who went to zoos, fell in love with animals, learned from the keepers, fell in love with the keepers, launched an Instagram, launched a podcast, has raised thousands of dollars. I'm now involved in conservation organizations, care about this stuff, educate people about this stuff, reach thousands of people a week talking about this stuff, all just because I went to zoos.
Right.
And I know that not everyone who walks into a zoo is going to do that. There just aren't a lot of, Rossifari ripoffs out there. It's not the road it goes down.
Yeah.
But we do exist. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people I talk to, especially at conservation organizations, got inspired by going to zoos and stuff. It really does good, and it really does make a change. And studies be damned on either side, positive ones too. The fact that I do what I do because of that is proof enough.
Yeah.
If one person gets inspired that way, other ones are too.
Yeah.
And whatever the numbers are, whatever the percentages, whatever, at least it's there. And it's doing good.
It's what I was like, it's all about your intentions when you go places, what you want to take away from it. Mm-hmm. And it's just no way that you can't be in awe by these majestic creatures and just the amazing things. The little niche, no specific animal is greater than the other. They are all one. And without one, we are just one step closer to that mass extinction. So.
Except for red pandas, which are clearly better than the rest. But anyway.
Well, because they survived the Ice Age.
Obviously.
They're going to survive everything.
Yeah, obviously. But other than that, you're right.
Except for the bottlenecks. But no, I'm just kidding. Oh, red pandas. I can't wait to go to Nepal.
I'm excited for you. All right, friend. Conservation organization you'd like to give a shout out to?
Red Panda Network.
Duh, obviously.
Bring back Terrence. No, I'm joking.
Oh my God.
Just kidding.
That's amazing.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
So instead of poop story,
I
challenge this one to be, what's the grossest thing that's been in your mouth?
I couldn't tell you her name. I'm kidding. I'm going to cut that out.
Oh.
So the grossest thing that's been in my mouth, and I actually just recently told this story, is penguin poop.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Yeah.
That's very similar to my story. So, grossest thing that's been in my mouth is ostrich poop.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, cleaning out an ostrich barn, and it's heavy, and you have a bucket full. And so, there's a trash can, and I'm just but I forget to close my mouth when I do that. So, when I go around the shoulder and slap it into the garbage can, it just splats right back into my face and into my mouth.
Amazing.
So
Ostrich poop,
which is a poop story.
Poop story.
Oh, yeah.
But also the grossest thing that's been in my mouth.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. And it's almost midnight, so double thank you. Because I know this isn't really zookeeper time.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe it's bagel baker time.
It's bagel baker time. But also, just my anxiety keeps me up this late anyways.
Sweet. I'm glad we could cash in on that.
It'll wake me up at 4.
Perfect. We could do another interview then. No kidding. I'll be asleep.
And that was not a lie, y'all, because I was very much asleep at 4 a.m., but I did get up early the next day and head to the Dallas Zoo to hang out with Jamie and some of her team. And I got to meet the chimps and gorillas that she works with. And it was really special. They're amazing animals, obviously, but also just to see Jamie back in her element after she walked away from it and then felt called back was just really, really special. So I am very grateful to the Dallas Zoo for allowing this to all happen, and to Jamie for sharing these amazingly deep stories with y'all. And yeah, if you haven't heard my season 1 finale episode with Jamie, there's a whole lot more of us chattering and going off topic and philosophizing and all the things. So I highly recommend you go back and give it a listen. I do want to take a moment before we say goodbye to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Kevin Williams. And you can support the pod by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. For as little as $3 a month, you can get some cool bonus audio and some fun other stuff, as well as, supporting this podcast, which is pretty cool. So, other than that, bring it back here on Friday for some zoo news, and until then, remember, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari, or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.